Welcome to Cast and Crank Podcast. Today we have Troy Lindner. Troy is the host of a TV show. I think he does Wandering Fisherman, Angling Buzz, and Ontario Experience. Great guy. I met him through Derek Stewart again. Thanks, Derek, for helping out. And we had a great conversation. We talk about YouTube, Instagram, his life, like I like to, just, about the guy. And he had some great points. And he also gave me a pretty good compliment about the podcast, about pretty much what my expectation of it is. And you guys could hear that in there. And it's a great guy. Check out his show, support him, follow him on Instagram. Troy Lindner. Tackle shops that are open that I know. I didn't reach out to anyone this week, sorry. It's going to be Performance Tackle, Save on Tackle. I'm pretty sure the Longfin's still open. Last Chance is open. And that's all I know right now. I got to get with people to do something, to do commercials. If you guys follow me on Instagram, my car got stolen. Well, I guess it's me and my wife's car, but she picked it out, Expedition. So it's kind of crazy to walk out and get my car stolen. So different, and COVID got me in a different way. But hope everyone's staying safe. Next week will be the Informative Fisherman. And then I think I have Sly Guy Lures on. And I have some couple more lined up. I'm hoping we can open it back up and do some in-person ones in the next couple weeks once this is all over with. And I'll still be practicing social distancing and making sure we're safe and, spray everything down before I get anyone in. If you guys give us 5 stars, great. Hope everyone's staying safe, catching some fish, and hear from you next week. Here our ad is from Olukai again. All right, thanks, guys. Aloha was born in Hawaii, but the Aloha spirit holds no geographic boundaries. With Aloha as our foundation, Olukai takes a different approach to footwear. Olukai crafts only the highest quality shoes and sandals with premium materials and artistic story detail with a style, durability, and versatility for today's watermen and waterwomen who lead an active ocean-bound lifestyle. In fact, Olukai's water-friendly, I'm going to try this, Nohia Maku, slip-on shoe, and ukulele sandal are actually made to get wet. Instead of me talking, I'm going to insert Benny. Benny Florentino is a guest of the podcast, and he has way more experience with this than I do, so I'd rather have you guys hear the truth than me try to give you something fake. Listen.
I've been fortunate enough to be an ambassador for Olukai for the past 5 years, and, they just came out with ukulele. It's all-day comfort footbeds, and the non-marking outer sole. So for those of you who have really expensive boats, they're not going to mark the sole up, and it's non-skid. That wet grip rubber outsole for great traction on wet surfaces, phenomenal, and they look good and comfortable.
Whether you're loading up the boat with supplies at the dock, shoreline fishing from the rocks, or scoping out the best place to cast from the beach, Nohia Maku and ukulele is destined to keep you sure-footed with comfortable island style through every step of the journey. Shop or find your local retail at olukai.com. To support the podcast, go to www.olukai.com/cast and crank. Please, guys, go. If you're going to buy a pair of sandals, just go out there and get online and go to that link. It's going to help us a lot. Check it in the bio of the podcast. Thanks again for listening, guys. All right, Troy. Another one from Derek Stewart helping us out, hooking us up. You're kind of been doing this for a minute, and your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We could just start off by with your dad and kind of go from there. How that all, being a little kid and kind of coming to where you are now,
Yeah, I do want to thank Derek Stewart for kind of hooking us up on here. He played a quick backstory how I got introduced to your podcast through him. When we drove out to the lake, we go fishing, and he told me about it a while ago. And we listened to it, a number of them driving out there. Todd Klein, one of them, and some of the other. It was really informative and a lot of fun to listen to real talk. Not necessarily, like rod, reel, line, parallel this, and you got to do this to get some great information from the industry, from people in the industry. Apart from specifically just fishing techniques, the stories that make us human.
Yeah.
and what happens outside of.
I appreciate you recognizing that, because that's kind of what I wanted from the beginning, was more than I fished for 10 years, but I want to know the funny stories or the stuff, like you said, that make people human. And that was the goal of the podcast from the beginning, was just to make it a human story, like we share something, but we might laugh at the same things also,
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, man, let's hear your story, man. That's why we want to have you on, I mean, from being a kid and kind of doing, the same thing your dad kind of did,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my father started, he knew at a very young age that he wanted to get into fishing. He grew up in Chicago, summered in Wisconsin, up in the Hayward area. I'll kind of fast track a lot of his things. Him and his brother, they were pouring jigs in the basement, paying their buddies a little bit, trying to make this tackle company called Lindy Tackle. And then I might get some of these things out of order. They sold, then that became Lindy Little Joe. They sold that to Railvac, and then it became Lindy Little Joe later on. And they started an information report, which later became in Fisherman Magazine. So they started these subscriptions. Back then, you had to do the mail-in report. So you'd mail in the car, fishing report, and I think they're called fishing segments. You get 12 a year or something, and they got the initial order, which back then you could send cash in the mail and checks, and it would be fine. You didn't have to worry about it getting stolen. And so they sat on all this money that came in, and then they had 4 weeks to develop a product or finish the product and get it shipped out. And, today you can do it digitally. Yeah. Back then you had to mail out, stamp every single one, and hand sign, a lot of the addresses. And then that kind of morphed into, in Fisherman Magazine. And there was a time when my dad was fishing. He's a bass tournament fisherman on the Bassmaster Tour, fished in the very early years. And it was interesting, at the same year, him, 2 other guys all left professional bass fishing. So it was him. He went to go do the media side, TV and print. Bill Dance, that would go to do television. And the other guy went to go, he told my dad, Johnny Morris, he told my dad something to the effect, I'm going to go try to start a little tackle store. And then it became Bass Pro Shops.
So wild,
and they all left
man.
at the same time, the exact same year. And they talked about, when you sit around a tournament and you sit around and talk about the event afterwards, and Bill's like, I think I'm not good, I think I'm going to go try TV, I'm going to try this new thing. And my dad's like, all right, I'm going to try that and this. And then Johnny Morris like, all right, I'm going to go open a tackle store.
Just a tackle store, that's it, huh? Just a little tackle store at that.
At the time, how each of their businesses in the fishing industry kind of grew to what they are and how they've transformed and how they sold. In Fisherman, they sold that back in, I think, 99 or 2000 was officially when it transferred over, and been away from that for 20 years until Lindner Media Production, just strictly digital. Mm-hmm. Which everything is going, and something like we're doing right now didn't even really 20 years ago, a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I have a guy I fish with, Seth Niswanger. His dad ran a radio show, I think, I forgot what it was called, but it was pretty big. And we've talked to him, and just from radio to now to podcast, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, even with you, with the digital TV show. So you've been doing a TV show for a minute now, right?
Yeah. Growing up in the industry, it's kind of what I knew, and it's what I know. I can't compare it to any other way of growing up, because it's the way I grew up. My dad was on the road, probably, which I'm sure a lot of business, if they grew up, their fathers, traveled. He was gone 250 days a year for many years in a row, just traveling, trying to build a business. And it's what I knew. It wasn't anything, just the way life was, and it was fine. And trying to grow, and I was just a young kid. When you're young like that, you don't really know what's going on. And it was, it was just grew up fishing. We got around, at family events, we talked fishing. Everything was around fishing. It was business and fishing. And that's kind of what I've grown to know. And when I was on some of the shows, in the early years, I'd be on some of the episodes and that, and it was kind of fun, and the big giant cameras. Now you can shoot. I mean, with this, I can shoot 4K with this phone right now, which only a few years ago was, you had to have the red cameras at $5,000, $10,000 cameras to shoot, 4K.
Yeah.
And just how the technology has changed the way we get the fishing information from the big cameras. And then you had to tune into TNN on Saturdays to get the fishing block, the outdoor block. You got your information through print. And when Bassmaster came out, Facts of Fishing and Fisherman, you got, you read through, the articles, and then you went to you take the magazine, you look at that, then you go to the store because you couldn't, there was nothing online. And now you can just sit, watch something, like it, click, order. 2 days later, you got it, or sometimes even the next day you got that lure. You can go take it out fishing. It's the speed of the information. It's just incredible. And the fact that it can also connect people in ways that, with everything that we're having to do here in California with the stay-at-home order and the kind of the quarantine that's going on and the the state of the country, that we can actually video each other, meet virtually and talk about fishing, talk about life this way is truly incredible. I mean, this is a way to connect and reach people that's just awesome.
Yeah. And for you, so you've been doing the TV show for a long time, and I'm a audio guy and kind of getting into the video a little bit. So when you kind of started doing this, do you do the whole production kind of on your own now? Are you involved with it like from start to finish?
For two of the TV shows that the Angling Buzz, that's kind of it's kind of a sports center for the upper Midwest, what's happening in parts of Ontario, Canada, and Canada, in the upper Midwest, for kind of fishing report, and that's in the summertime. And I'm mainly on camera for that, and I do some of the segments. I'll get B-roll for it and work on some of the editorial content for it. But a lot of the editors that are there, Jim Grover, Brand Brown, they film, they edit those pieces together. My cousin James kind of puts together the overall thematically each show. He kind of oversees and produces that. For Ontario Experience, now that we filmed 3 seasons of it, I was a backup, or am, I guess, a backup cameraman, I guess, to reduce production costs. We're out in the field, so it's myself, like the last couple of seasons, Pete Poloni, and just him and I would go out in the field, and the way we would shoot it, and I'd have my GoPros for side shots, and then he'd have the bigger cameras for drone shots, and if we do everything right, it looks like a multi-person production. So if you see those shows, for the most, it's just me and him, and a lot of time we're out in a 16-foot aluminum thing in the middle of the wilderness, off the grid, and we're filming, and then he's getting, and you're in a very confined space on those lighter boats, and he's leaning over the side with a very expensive camera, so I have to be careful how I move, and how, we're not in a big fancy bass boat for the most part. Pretty much we're always with a 20 horse to 40 horse tiller and a 16-foot aluminum. That's the way pretty much all those, if you look at a lot of the episodes. Sometimes we're in a 9.9 and a 14-foot aluminum, and those things, which are pretty much the rental boats, like Southern Cal, you go to it's a rental boat. And you get 2 guys, camera equipment and everything, or drones, and trying to, and Peter, it's a fun challenge, to get the fish and get the fish on camera, especially in those small, limited conditions. And you can do it in the other part, people that are, people, if they're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, where they're filming and and they see these big fancy bass boats. It's easy to film on a 20-foot big boat, or in the ocean if you're on a 24-foot boat. It's easy you get all the room in the world to film on that, and you can also do it on a small boat. You're not limited by the size of the vessel.
Yes, and a lot of these times, so you're out like in the wilderness, like there's not really anyone around, right?
Yeah, last year was that 2 years, not last summer. That was the summer before. We went to Sudbury, so we did 2 totally remote ones where, like Sudbury Aviation, they drop you off. They come in a float plane. We drop you off and then they leave you there for a few days. And we didn't have a sat phone, we had nothing, and then if the weather permitting, they come and they pick you up sometime in the morning, and basically you sit and you listen for the plane to come over.
Wow.
And which is the way it's been for a lot of years, but it's very, you step differently, you walk differently when you have any movement, a movement like that, a twisted ankle, a broken leg, you can't get out. Anything happens over the boat, like you're just more, it makes you more present and more careful with all your movements, medical emergencies, everything. You're just more careful.
Do you run into nature sometimes, like bears or anything like that?
Yeah, we'll see moose, we'll see bears. This last year did see, which is rare, really cool, saw a wolf.
Wow.
Crossing, which they are, wow. From what I understand from the hunters, the black bears up there are kind of, we've seen a number of black bears, and they're kind of like big dogs. You don't hear really about black bear, to obviously grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
But black bears, from what I've seen personally, which is not a lot of interaction, but they're just big dogs. If you stand up and you make noise, they kind of creep in. They kind of see what's going on. They'll look at you, and then if you go, they'll pretty much they get kind of defend with if they don't have cubs or they're not guarding food or something,
Yes.
And they're a very curious animal. And the wolves, talking to the outdoorsmen up there and the people that said the wolves are the scariest because they don't let you know they're there. They're there, and you hear them howl. They said they're more afraid of the wolves than bears, because the wolves, you just turn and it's like a velociraptor. All of a sudden, it's right there. It's on the side,
Right.
and the black bears are bigger. We did we went to a couple years ago. There's a food dump. A lot of the lodges, they have a food, if they got to dump their food, they have a garbage dump, and that's bear magnets.
Wow.
So because they come and they can get the food, so they have it far away from the lodge. So you drive out, so the lodge stays safe. So you got to drive miles out, dump whatever excess stuff that you have, and boy, we came in and the bears were right on. They were like right on cue. It was, and this bear came down the trail. We just sat and the guys just wait and watch. And we're like, and you seen this big bear just right down the trail, and then right behind us, maybe 50 yards, it went into the woods, and you heard nothing.
It's crazy, right? It's like so crazy. It's so quiet. Yeah.
You can't hear it. You couldn't hear it. And I'm listening as I try to listen. I hear nothing. You hear birds, and all of a sudden it comes out in front of you. You're like, you got to be kidding me, how an animal that big can be so quiet. And it's given me a much greater, I'm not a hunter. I guess fishing is a form of hunting, but not in the sense, I don't own a gun, I don't own a bow. But it gives me a much greater respect for people that do go out and hunt those animals. And looking back at our ancestors across the world, hundreds of years ago, a couple hundred years ago, when they had to hunt to go get food and chase down these animals. I mean, we're spoiled. I can go down to Sprouts, Ralph's, and I can go get packaged beef really easily. With I want 7% fat content, 15% fat content. I get it just right.
Yeah.
If it's not grass finished, grain finished, we're spoiled. But but it's we're living in a very, even with everything going on, it's still, I think conditions worldwide are still pretty good based on the shit that's happened over the lifetime of human.
You right. And so right now, is it kind of like put a halt to everything due to the whole COVID thing? You kind of like stuck on filming, flying, traveling, anything you got to do, right?
Yeah, everything in the industry pretty much, for the most part, which is nice for what we're doing here.
Yeah.
All the lakes are pretty much closed. There's, in this part of the country, I think Arizona shut down all the lakes. I think they just announced like the closure. Most of their lakes, California, were pretty much, shut down. There's probably areas if you wanted to get away on the river, that you could probably go fish. And it's different from other parts of the country because there's other part, where you get a house on a lake and you might only be the only house or there's nobody else around. and then you're just social distancing as a norm.
Yeah, and today tomorrow actually they're voting on that whole recreational fishing. Is it
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Washington already got shut down till I think the 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, what's your take on
California
that?
will be next, I think, just for a little while. And
what's your take on it? Like, you think it's just a better thing for now, just to kind of push forward and to everyone take a break from everything? Because a lot of guys are kind of like.
I mean, some people, argue the rights, and I get that. I understand where they're coming from, and I don't, but it's, if we look at the bigger picture of everything, let's just all get through this. And there, it sucks for whatever the economic impact of this. And as outdoorsmen, I haven't fished for a while in a number of weeks, and I just want to be able to go out and fish. Maybe just go to the ocean, do some surf fishing, anything. And there's ways you could probably justify it. You could I could probably justify it, but I'm like, is that an example I want to set?
Exactly.
Right now, and is no. Yeah. I'm choosing not to fish.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much my life, and I'm choosing right now not to fish.
Yeah. Now you're just flipping into empty cans and stuff.
Just pretending they're falling asleep and then setting the hook, waking up with my arm.
Oh man.
and just trying to organize tackle and work on past me catching up on other media stuff that I have to do, and kind of planning if this will be past us. This will pass us, and I believe that California being one of the first stay-at-home states, I think we were the second one, I think, behind Washington.
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of at least the reported cases, and whatever that means. Mm-hmm. I'm not a medical expert, so whatever that means, from what I'm seeing, is it's kind of leveling off, and you have places where it's spiking, like in Michigan and that, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
To see that.
Do you so you've done the show for a while, and I'm kind of picking your brain on that because it's kind of cool. You kind of grew up in it. So for me, what has the influence been with YouTube and social media? Because I feel like a lot of people have YouTube shows that are just on YouTube. I get with you got to find a sponsor to push the show. The only people I really know that have shows would be like Shay, and then local knowledge kind of does stuff. And I know how some of that works, where you have to bring a certain amount of sponsors to get the show going. Has YouTube affected your kind of the way you go about it?
I think it's changing. In the past few years, it's been been in a transition, and still the network. A lot of the fishing sponsors do like the network plays, Outdoor Channel, Sportsman Channel, and you adjust it to you take snippets of the show, you put it online, and YouTube and other platforms are sort of changing, the way things are going, and you're seeing things like Carbon TV, My Outdoor TV, you're seeing some of those pop up. So it's going, online, and the scary thing about YouTube, I don't know if it's scary, but they can just all of a sudden decide to demonetize fishing, or the way they, like they're doing with hunting, and they're all of a sudden.
Are they doing that with hunting? They're demonetizing it?
I think you can't. I've heard some things. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure in the algorithm that if you, for the most part, if you got a gun on there, or they can track, they can put in software to track all that stuff to make sure it's not shown, or they can somehow behind the scenes, however they do the code and the way it's sent to the viewers, change that up. And they also control, the network you can put on, is like, you can put on whatever you put on, and the monetization is strictly from, you have to buy, you buy the airtime, exactly how many viewers, you can get the Nielsen reported viewers, you can track a lot of that stuff. It's a little bit more delayed, obviously, than YouTube, and the YouTube numbers are fine, but how you convert a lot of that, is converting that to sales. You don't need sponsors for YouTube. It's a great way to get your name out there. I think where people started, and and not copying, but there's a lot of copy. The other thing is YouTube is getting so saturated
Yeah,
with
I've noticed
Me
that.
Too fishing shows.
Right. I mean, it's hard because everybody can kind of do something pretty cool with what you can get your hands on. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get your hands on a GoPro, a decent DSLR, and Premiere for $500. You pay the monthly service, and you can make an okay product. You know?
Yeah. And I think if you're, I think some of the fishermen are in it for the likes and the views, and not necessarily the passion for the sport.
Yeah.
And passion for growing, and that's the social media engine. People want the attention and they want the likes. And if there was no Instagram, if there was no YouTube, they probably wouldn't fish, or would barely fish, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And I know who they are, and I can see them on there. I can watch those videos and say, that guy doesn't know how to fish, and he doesn't care to know.
See that, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, because with my program, I never talk about what I know, because I feel like I'm interviewing you. I don't care what I know. So my goal is to know what you know and to know how you like to come about things. But it's hard because you see guys fish, people just relate to them somehow, maybe, and it's like they just get the likes and the views, and then maybe, yeah, I mean, it's a hard one. It's a really hard one, But yeah, I like that you touched on that for sure.
Yeah, and and I'm saying and to define this, people that don't care about fishing.
Yes.
Those, the ones that are personalities in fishing, fine. I watch their stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch. And you can tell that they do care about fishing and they enjoy fishing. And some of them, I've seen channels that just come up, and I've seen some of the stuff, and I'm just like, this guy, all of a sudden you have 12 sponsors.
Look at this fucking idiot. I cuss on my show, so I'm going to say it.
And how many promos is like you wouldn't, and I put this on my Instagram. I think 2 years ago, I said the question, like, if there was no Instagram, would you still fish as much as you did? And would you still fish as hard as you do? Do
you feel like a lot of people post, but just go fishing for the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do. They go out and they go fishing for the picture. And and I have to do that for my sponsor. I do it for my sponsors for my content. I go out and I go fishing for try to grab content, which what we're doing right.
Yeah.
What we're doing right now, creating content.
So when you do create content and you come up short on the footage, do you ever stunt fish? Do you know what that is?
No.
You never heard of
fish.
That? I heard it.
No, what is that?
Just like it sounds, a stunt man, stunt fish. You catch the fish, and you reuse it again. So say you catch.
Oh no.
I've heard it happens on shows. You got. I mean, I don't hate on it, but you got to do what you got to do to get a shot. But
the nice thing. The nice thing, when I go up to Ontario and catch those fish is that you don't need that. We're up there for a few days. We get the shot, and there's nobody, for the most part, it's just myself in the boat and for the most part, I have to get the fish. We're in a 16-foot, there's no live well. Yeah. There's no live well in those boats. And you see us out there, you can't, that's not even an option. And there's, so that there's nobody else out there to go get a fish. And when we have used fish, and some of the guys, and then we've been up there filming and, like, oh, we got a fish. Do you want to hold it? It's like, no, just, we get the shot of the other person holding the fish. They caught the fish. You catch your own fish, period.
But I'm sure you've done this for years, your whole life. So you've probably seen it all. People pull all kinds of little, tricks, but I just always wonder, like, I like that. It seems like your show is a little more like, you ever watch Meat Eater?
Yes.
So like that, how he documented his skunks pretty much for hunting, where he won't get anything. And I really liked that he did that. Like he didn't catch anything. He didn't kill anything. But he
I posted that. Yeah, I've done things. I've done some posts like on just my Instagram, for instance, and some of my YouTube videos. if I didn't catch anything zero or caught a very small fish, I'll hold it up. I've done that. You know, you look at some of my posts, I'm holding up a very small fish, and I say, why? I say, hey, if I was out there for 6 hours, I caught 2. This is the way it goes. This is the reality of it. It's easy to put. That's a nice thing. Instagram. It's really easy to put your big fish up there, and you can do it you can pretend like it's any time. There's no and anywhere. I mean, you can fake so much on Instagram.
Yep. And you also, so when you're filming for your stuff, a lot of it is up north, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to really worry about pressuring any lakes when you're filming something or rubbing people the wrong way.
In Minnesota, when we film like some of the stuff for if I do some of the shows for like Angling Edge, Fishing Edge, and Angling Buzz, we just try to go out during the middle of the week. And the nice thing in Minnesota, the Dakotas, where we shoot some of that stuff, and even into Wisconsin, is you have enough of a variety of lakes that you can get away. There's so many lakes there, and there's little hidden gems, so you can go in a public water, and there might just be a couple other boats there, and you can catch fish.
Yeah.
It does get tough, but there's a lot of lakes like Mille Lacs. You go out to Lake Mille Lacs, and you won't catch many walleye, but you go out there, you set the hook, it's big. When you could, I mean, they had it last year. I forgot when they closed off the season last year, but before that, you set the hook and it's just big. I mean, you got a great fish. Like I did, like this YouTube video when Oliver and I came out there. My dad jumped on the boat for a few hours. We caught some really nice walleye, and I have some of the other shot, like when I never really released the footage of the Leech Lake when I went up to Leech with my dad, my uncle, and we caught, we got a cast to catch. We got to be flipping up, setting the hook on a walleye, and then also releasing the fish, so I get the release shot, so there's no, what'd you call it, stunt fishing?
Yeah, there you go.
Stunt fishing.
I want to hear you use that term from now on, Troy.
For stunt fishing, I guess stunt fishing would only be, I guess, to justify it if there was a movie production where they need a fish, if there's a television commercial where where there's a crew there, then you got a lot of people working, and you're just lifting a fish up. If it's I won't name any brands. If somebody lifting a fish up out of a live well for a slow-mo shot, then they need a lift over for 2 days. But it's not like you're saying you caught it's a beauty shot fish.
Yeah.
From some brand or a tourism thing or something, and then you spin it and then you release it or something like that, where you're on the, but and if you got 2 fish, but you want to keep the fish healthy as much as you can. But, so if I heard, something like that would make more sense, not necessarily, you're using the fish to
make your video look better.
Or for the, for a movie, if you're on set, when movies need a fish, which I've never worked on that, but you can tell the fish is stressed. That's the only other thing, that the fish does get stressed. But if that's a tough thing, it's like, geez.
You seem like you have a lot of integrity though with your show. Just by interviewing you right now, do you think you learned a lot of that from your father, like kind of like learning the ropes, or did you kind of go, hey, I'm going on my own route, this is how I'm going to do it?
I learned a lot. I just learned a ton from him, and I learned, because I've seen when you had to make those big decisions, some of those business decisions that were really tough, and to see the stress that it put on them, and like back in Fisherman, this is back in when was it, in the 80s, when they refused to take beer and alcohol sponsors. And it was a lot of money that they turned down. I mean, a lot of money, especially back then. And they refused to take the money. And my dad was, and corporately, and some of the people like, why the hell wouldn't you take, and the others, why the hell wouldn't you take that money? And it was sort of and they never did. They never had to, up until, and maybe it happened after they sold the company, but, back then when they turned down seeing that, turned down the alcohol and turned down the cigarette companies, which have big pockets, very, very big pockets.
Yeah.
And the integrity with that, and just to see, some of the things that my dad's are just like, he just won't do it. Like he doesn't do, like gimmicky holding,
No.
this is my, like you don't see him on doing a lot of
Like Talladega Nights. You ever seen that movie?
what is it? Oh yeah. Just
This is Ricky Bobby. I'm holding.
could, yeah, which he could easily, just go plug any off-brand thing, just hold, like just hold something up and be like, oh, like
Yeah.
and the brand, and the brand loyalty through the years for England Edge, for Rapala. They've had Rapala for how many years? I don't even know how many. So Rapala's 25 years.
Wow.
Mercury's like 40 years.
Yeah.
Lundboat's it's like you're talking decades-long partnerships through these brands. And I think that brand integrity, where you're not jumping brand to brand to brand. And obviously there's, you still got to put food on the table. But if you're doing things right, and a lot of things are out of your control with the brand, but if you're doing things right with those brands, you're at least with them, for a number of years. It's not, sometimes you see these companies, and especially with some of these YouTubers, they're with a brand for a year and they don't understand the business. They don't understand,
Yeah.
they understand business, but they don't understand the fishing business. And people see that. They see them jumping from brand to brand. They see them jumping to the next paycheck. If they're promoting a different something outside of that's fine. You can promote all you want.
Yeah.
But if it's fishing lures, all of a sudden, next year you're with this fishing lure company, you're with this fishing lure, you're with this rod brand. All of a sudden that rod brand is gone, and this is the next one. But no, wait a minute, now that one's gone, and then now you're promoting this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
No.
don't even promote any, or just
Just fish. Yeah. I mean, it's for a paycheck, I guess. A lot of these kids. I mean, look at John B. That guy's got to be killing it, right? For YouTube, making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he kind of did his own bait company, right? They had that Guggen Baits where they kind of
and they've done really well. And I've started following those guys back when they had, I don't even know. I mean, they were still, it was like this, like back in very early 2016, and probably even the end of 2015 when I started watching their channels when they just had, I was a very early subscriber, probably when they had 30,000 subs, 20,000 subs, and I watched them, and very, very cool to see them. I saw them, I think at ICAST, it's a few years ago at ICAST, when they were still just starting to break into that, and they've done extremely well. They've done really, really well for their brands, and that's great. I don't know them personally, but what they've done to when some people don't like them, they get a lot of, but I don't know them personally. I watch their videos. The production value on some of the videos is very, very good. And it's very enjoyable to watch. And John B., I like his international stuff when he goes chase GTs and some of that. And I enjoy the content. And they built a good brand off the Guggen Baits, and it's selling really good. And the marketing behind it is excellent.
Yeah. So did you grow up out here, or did you grow up back east?
Back east. Grew up in Minnesota. And then after high school, went to Arizona State, and then left with some buddies, came out to SoCal, and I've been out here ever since. Wow. So I've lived in SoCal longer than, I think now officially, I've lived here longer than anywhere else.
But you were fishing back east lakes at that time.
And I would go back in the summertime. I'd go back, and in my summers during college, I'd go back and work in the professional walleye trail, and I'd film that with the big cameras. We used to have weight belts to hold the batteries, these like 30-pound weight belts, and then you'd plug it into these giant cameras that were like this big, and you put it on your shoulder like this, and you plug it into your weight belt, and you'd have to find something to white balance and zoom in these tapes, you'd put in the tapes, and I kind of cut my teeth from a lot of different things, being fortunate enough to do that, but understand what it takes, back then to go film, on the water and get with a huge camera.
Do you ever eat it with the camera, like fall or anything?
No, I trip a little bit, but I never broke a camera, never fell overboard with it. Fortunately, I did okay. And now, to get the underwater shots back then, you'd have to have a clear glass thing with heavy weights that would sink down. And I mean, the thing would be, 150-pound thing, and it would be glass, and then it would just be able, and you'd have 2 feet of clear, and then you could drop the big camera inside of it, just over the side of the boat, and then that's how you got a lot of, back then, it was 20 years ago, how you get an underwater shot was that, or probably even more than 20 years ago, and now you just take your GoPro and put in a selfie stick.
Did you, and that's what you were doing? Were you doing a lot of tournament stuff then, fishing too?
No, I was filming the walleye
Just
trail
filming.
tournaments, professional walleye trail. I filmed those back in the late '90s when that was coming up, and then I really didn't do the tournament stuff until about 2006. I think I got into the tournaments in SoCal. So between then, after I came to LA, I started personal training, and I did a personal training business for a number of years, for like 15, 16.
Weight training and stuff?
Yeah, physical
cool.
training. Yeah,
Wow.
personal training.
Do you still do that? You don't do that no more at all?
No.
No.
The time, to be away so much for the travel, for the fishing, to go back, kind of, I tried it for 1 year and it didn't work with my clients, so,
Yeah, I bet.
so I kind of had to step away from that. I still try to do some fitness stuff, some fitness information on social media the best that I can from all my years learning, and trying to apply it to what we do, to fishing, to help our shoulders, because fishing is a very physical activity. I mean, it really is. And you have companies like Wilderness Athlete that really support, outdoor. They make products for outdoorsmen, supplements for outdoorsmen. I use their stuff. I've been with them now for a few years, and awesome company. For hunting and fishing, and they care, it's not like another, they make stuff, the products they make are for the outdoorsman.
Yeah.
And our activity, if you're saltwater, you're cranking a big, that's work.
Yeah, I know. Definitely. So when you, how did your whole tournament career, because do you still do tournaments somewhat?
I don't do as many, but I started out a lot of the team tournaments in Southern Cal. Me and Derek still do it,
Yeah.
We still do a few each year, depending on our schedules. And the tournament scene, it was interesting getting into the tournament scene at the end of the big bass. I did get into the gigantic trophy bass, in the early 2000s, when those fish in Casitas, and when there's just teeners every single day, a teener was caught. And, in San Diego, I missed that whole, I was on the downside of that curve when all those fish, stopped. I remember going to Lake Casitas and seeing these, I don't even know, 13 to 15 pound bass in a tree.
Wow.
You just would see it.
Yeah.
And you just they wouldn't bite, but you'd see one, and just you look at the fish, and I'm saying 13 to 15, could be 16, could be 12. I mean, when they get that size and you're looking at them and they're just wait, it doesn't even look real. I mean, it's just sitting there. It's just, just kind of sitting there, and you throw something by and it would look at it. The big swim bait just would sit like that, and just wait, it's just waiting for like a 2-pound trout to swim by and then grab it.
Yeah. What was your PB when you're doing that?
Geez. I had one. I went down to the lagoon, Castaic, with Bill Seamantel and my dad. We went down there, and Bill set us up on a whole trolling thing. So it was like 11 something, but it was Bill set up he set everything up. So it wasn't like me casting, and he put us on the fish for that.
Yeah.
That was my biggest, with an asterisk on it. It was a guide, a kind of a guided trolling fish. It was still amazing just to see that at the time, one of the biggest fish I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
In person. And my biggest, that I would say, my biggest reel, I had one in a tournament in Diamond Valley. I think it was 10.5 pounds. And the biggest bass I've ever caught in my life have been during tournaments.
Wow.
So everything 8 and above have always been in tournaments.
That's kind of nice,
either
though,
FLW
right?
or team tournaments.
That's really nice, though, right? Because it helps.
Yeah. So I've had, and I think in Texoma, I got that giant one, almost 9 pounds. The first day in Texoma fishing FLW.
Yeah.
I had the big fish at one FLW, the whole tournament at Clear Lake once. Second big bass ever at the the biggest bass, some of the biggest one, like I said, have been during tournaments, which has been, I guess, good. But it's amazing, as much as I've, fished in the time in the water, that I still haven't, caught, just regular fishing that I actually broke one off at when was I fishing? I was at Skinner, and I think this was in February, early February. I did have one that was in that 8 to 10 pound range on.
Wow.
Hooked into a light line. The water's really clear. I was just finessing. And it ran me into the tulies.
Oh,
and I actually put the GoPro on. I'm just sitting with the spinning rod, and the thing has jumped. It just swam into the tulies, and it was like kind of up on top, up deep in there and swimming. And I just was like, I had it on the line, like I can't. I was just trying to. It broke me off. That was one of the biggest largemouth I've ever hooked into in my life.
Wow.
I set the hook, and I'm like, okay, this feels like a good one. And the thing comes up and jumps, and I'm like, and I'm in a rental boat.
Yeah.
So not like I'm on a trolling boat. This was in a rental boat. It's small boat fish. I was, they're 14 or 16 foot aluminums. And you can't, you set the hook like that, and a big fish, it'll pull the boat towards the fish. It's not like a trolling motor where I can meticulously guide. I had a little trolling motor in the back, but you're trying to fight the fish, and it's a hand, I got a little hand throttle clamp on trolling motor. But even then, a small boat, to get back to what we were talking about before, a small rental boat, you can go out there and still catch big fish.
Do you feel sometimes it's hard?
Well,
yeah. Do you feel like sometimes it's hard for you to put the camera down and just to fish? Because maybe you just want to catch, it's hard because you don't know if you're going to catch that footage you might need, or...
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes that I want to get the shot, and it's nice when you do get the shot when things line up. And it's kind of, I know Jim Shockey. I heard him talk about that now when he uses his guns. He uses that double barrel sight in whatever he uses. I guess it's a very specific gun that's like a true old school. Like, you got to be really good with that gun. And I remember, he enjoys now, it's with that gun, with the right angle at the light, with the camera guy over his shoulder to get a rare, or not get, let's say, a rare animal, get whatever he's going after.
Yeah.
He's in Africa, and get all that to line up. The light is on the animal. Like, that's what he enjoys, capturing that whole moment. And I'm enjoying, I can go out and just go fish for carp just on my own, and I love it. Absolutely love it. I can go bass fish with it. Go to City Park Lake, go to El Dorado.
Mm-hmm.
I have my GoPro with us. Something happens. But it is nice, when I go out and try to get something and try to set up, when I go out specifically for a shot and get that. Sometimes happens, you talk to the king, you mention something, and I'm going to throw out there, and it, like the first or second cast, it happens. It's a pretty cool, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. I bet it's got to be stressful sometimes, because even when I'm just messing around or put a GoPro on just for the Instagram channel, I'll be like, damn, I should have had that on, or should have, you really screwed a shot up.
The fear of missing out, or I don't know if FOMO applies to that, but the fear of missing out and fear of missing the shot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
It is, because it's like, it's sometimes, you have that eye, and I've kind of been doing video a little more, so it's like, oh man. Or sometimes it'll just be like a sun coming over the jetty or something, and I like those a lot. And
I had one at this last FLW. I was fishing at Havasu, and I was fishing in a small rail. I fished that tournament in the Pure Watercraft electric outboard. Oh, wow. And the first time like that we're testing, we had new, I've been with Pure Watercraft for a few years now, kind of helping them on the fishing side. And this was the next, round of battery systems that they developed and outboard, and we kind of threw a hat in the ring at a big time. Let's really put it to the test at a where there's so many unknowns, and that's a tournament situation and a big tournament situation.
Yeah.
And I was fishing in the marina with a idling, which is nice in the quiet outboard. You idle in there, it's nice and quiet, go down the slips, and I went to the back, and there was a bass on a bed over the railing, and I flipped in there, and I caught the fish, and it's pretty heavy, and I figured, I saw the size of the fish, 17-pound test, am I right? Like, I can pick this fish up if nothing happened. Sure enough, I get it on the dock, set the hook, lift it up, drag across the dock, and then in between the dock and the boat, I went to put it on the boat, and it went in between them. It was like a 4-pound bass, and I, without even thinking, I just grabbed the line with I just like put the rod down, grabbed the line with my hand, lifted the line up, and put it in the boat. And I wish I would have had, catch it, throw over the dock, catch the fish.
Yeah.
The fish goes on the dock and then back into the water, and then the way it was directly down, so I didn't have any leverage with the rod, because the rod was already up at the top.
Yeah.
So I would have had to like go up and get it. See, the best thing, I just grabbed the line and went, I was like, don't break. Picked it up and
The whole time thinking that.
But moments like that, like, I wish I had that on film. But it's still, you can't, you have things like that. It's hard to predict that, when those magic moments are going to happen. Some of the beauty shots, like you said, with the jetty, with the sun like that, you can kind of predict. Low light shots, beauty shots of just a slow motion cast or something that people, that I always like some of the beauty shots like that too can always work, and they're evergreen too. They can, anytime you can post those things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on, Troy. Let's plug your sponsors and your shows. Everything.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Again, I want to thank Derek Stewart for
me too,
for hooking us up on here, and Rapala VMC hooks. I've been with them for a number of years, and through my through the involvement with Lindner Media, over the years, a fantastic company. And recently went over to France last year to the VMC headquarters to actually see how those hooks are made.
Wow.
And I couldn't film inside the factory. They said no filming inside the factory, and don't talk about necessarily what's going. It's incredible. Yeah. So when I look at the VMC hooks now, knowing the whole process, unbelievable. Like as a wilderness athlete too, if you use code FISH, you can save 10% on your order. And go to wildernessathlete.com and go to motors, Pure Watercraft. You go to purewatercraft.com. You'll see I just posted a couple things, from the electric outboard. There is a 40 to 50 horse equivalent, gas equivalent, and it's going to make some big waves in the industry and just in the boating industry. For all the benefits of it. It's just incredible. Minn Kota, I want to thank them, as well as Humminbird, Lake Master Chips. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
And what shows can they catch? Where can they catch your shows? Where can
the Angling Buzz airs on Fox Sports North, Fox Sports Wisconsin, and some other. You can also get on YouTube. Angling Buzz. The Ontario Experience is on the Sportsman channel. That's airing right now on the Sportsman channel every single week.
Great.
Called the Ontario Experience. YouTube, the Ontario Experience, as well as all the appropriate Facebook. And you can follow me on Instagram, Troy Lindner, Facebook, Troy Lindner Fishing.
Great. Thanks again, Troy. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.